This is the fourth lesson in our Blender for Beginners course series. We're continuing to build this environment, and right now, we're going to model this tower. But before we dive into that, let's head over here and open up the Viewport Shading settings. We can change the lighting setup on our model. Click right here, and we've got a few options available. We can go with this one or try the others. We can also turn on matte cap. There's a wider variety of options available here, and if you want, you can even create your own, but that's a story for another day. For now, let's just choose this one. Scroll down, and here we can change the background color. Select Viewport, click here, and pick any color you need. Let's just make it a slightly darker gray. Scroll down a bit further. Here we can enable shadows, though I wouldn't really recommend turning them on. Instead, let's activate the cavity feature. Change the type to both. Now we can tweak the ridge brightness, their highlight intensity, and the shadow depth. Set these to relatively low values, because this kind of shading makes it much easier to read the forms of our models. We can notice that on some models, the shading looks a bit off. That's simply because their normals are flipped. For instance, on this model and this one over here. So let's jump into edit mode, select the entire mesh, and then hit Shift+N to recalculate the normals outside. I don't see any other broken models here, so let's keep going. Let's head over to the castle collection. Select it, hit the plus icon to create a new one, and name it Tower. With this collection selected, I'll press Shift+A and add a cube. Let's move it to the top part of the castle, right about here. Go into edit mode, turn on X-ray mode by pressing Alt+Z, and select the top vertices. Press G, Z, and move them up a bit. Now, let's make the tower a bit thicker. To do that, I'll hit A to select the whole mesh, then press S, Shift+Z to lock the scaling on the Z-axis, and pull it out until the object intersects with the castle walls in these areas. We'll be adding bevels later anyway, so no worries there. Let's switch to the side view, turn on X-ray, and select these edges while in Edge Select mode. Now, press Ctrl+B and create a standard bevel. Scroll the mouse wheel to set the number of segments. Let's type in 0.2 in the operator panel. Switch back to object mode and apply Shade Auto Smooth. Looking at the reference, you can see that the tower widens towards the top. This was done for artistic purposes, and we're going to model it too, but a bit later. First, let's get all these smaller details down. Let's go into edit mode, press Ctrl+R, and add a single loop cut right here. Hold Ctrl and slide it down. Right now, we're modeling this trim. Press Ctrl+B and split it into two segments. Then switch to the top view, press E to extrude, S to scale, lock the Z-axis by pressing Shift+Z, and bring it out just a bit. Switch to the side view, press S, Z, and scale it down slightly along the Z-axis. Let's see how it looks from the side. Time to add a new object. Press Shift+A, grab a cube, and move it right here. We're modeling this section of the tower now. I'll eyeball the proportions and position. Once you're happy with the proportions, make sure to apply the scale. Press Ctrl+A, Scale. Let's jump into edit mode and add one loop cut right here and another one over here. We'll need them later. Now, select these edges and let's add the same kind of bevel as we did on the object below. Press Ctrl+B, set it to 4 segments, and an offset of 0.2 meters. Switch back to object mode and apply Shade Auto Smooth here as well. Let's model these trim pieces. Go into edit mode, press Ctrl+R, and add a loop cut right here. Hold Ctrl to slide it closer to the top, right about here. Then, switch to face select mode by pressing 3 on your keyboard. Double-click to select this loop of faces. Press Shift+D to duplicate it, and then right-click to cancel the movement. Right-click again and choose Separate Arrow Selection from the menu. This separates this chunk of the mesh into its own object. Switch back to object mode and select this new piece. Let's give it some thickness. Go over to the Modifiers tab, Generate, and add a Solidify modifier. Bump up the thickness value to around this much. Jump back into edit mode, select the entire mesh, press Shift+D, and duplicate it along the Z-axis, placing it right in this section. Return to object mode, and in the modifiers panel, let's stack a bevel modifier to create a subtle edge highlight around this size. Now, let's model the windows. Go into edit mode for this object, and as you can see, we already have two loop cuts we made earlier, this one and this one. We'll be using them now. Select them and press Ctrl+B, split them, and set the segment count to 7. Make sure it's exactly 7. Next, let's define the base of the window. Press Ctrl+R and add a cut right here. We also have another loop cut that we created earlier, right here. Select it, tap the G key twice, and use the Edge Slide tool to push this loop down. This will be the top of the window. Switch to the side view. Go into Face Select mode and select this face, this one, and this one. These are going to be our windows. Do the exact same thing on the back side. Hold Shift and select the two windows at the front. Now, press E on your keyboard and extrude them inward. Change your transform pivot point to individual origins. Press S and scale them down just a bit. Now we have our windows. Let's switch to Edge Select mode by pressing 2, go to the side view, turn on X-ray mode, and select these edges. After that, go to the Select menu, find Select Similar, and choose Length. This automatically selects all other edges of the same length. To clear the selection from the sides, open the operator panel and lower the threshold value until only the edges we actually need remain selected. Once that's done, press Ctrl+B and add a small bevel with a couple of segments, right about like this. Let's see how it looks. You might want to tweak the height of these windows, and that's pretty easy to do. Just go into Edit mode, switch to Vertex Select, turn on X-ray, and box select these vertices. Then press G, Z, and move them down. Just like that, we've increased the window size along the Z-axis. Now, let's model these vertical wooden planks. To speed things up, let's edit this object. Select a face, this one for example, and press Shift+D. Then right-click, choose Separate Arrow Selection, and split it into a separate object. Next, go into Edit mode for this newly created piece, and now we can adjust its position, shape, and everything else. Press R, Y, and rotate it 90 degrees on the Y-axis. Switch to the front view, move it down, and stretch it vertically. Let's check its form. We can bump up the thickness. Let's make it a bit thicker than this trim piece. Switch to the side view and position the plank right between the windows. Now let's duplicate it. Press Shift+D and move it along the X-axis, aligning it just like the previous one. To avoid manually duplicating and positioning the next ones, just press Shift+R to repeat the last action, which was the duplication. That's a super handy feature in Blender. To mirror these planks to the opposite side, let's go to the Modifiers panel and add a mirror modifier, mirroring it along the Y-axis. Let's place the same planks at the back. Press Shift+D to duplicate the object, then press R to rotate, spin it on the Z-axis, type 90, and hit Enter. Since we're going to have a little balcony here at the front, we won't need the middle plank. Let's apply the mirror modifier. Then go into Edit mode, select this face, and delete it. Now we have these nice wooden planks. Let's carve out the doorway opening. Go into Edit mode for this object and add a loop cut right here using Ctrl+R. Switch to Face Select mode by pressing 3 and select this area. Then press E to extrude it inward. Scale it down a bit and add the same bevels as we did on the windows. Press Ctrl+B and create a matching bevel. Switch to Object mode, and you might notice that the edges along the bevels look sharp. That's because our Shade Auto Smooth angle is set to 30 degrees. Let's bump it up to around 40, and now you can see they look smooth. Before we start modeling the balcony itself, let's step back and look at the tower as a whole. I feel like it needs to be lowered a bit. Let's switch to Wireframe, or just select through everything. Grab all the objects making up the tower, press G, Z, and drop it down about this much. Also, now we're going to create that flared look, specifically making the tower wider at the top. We'll use a new tool for this. First, let's add an object, Press Shift plus A, and this time we're adding a lattice. This is a specialized deformation cage, and it spawned at the world origin. Let's move it to the center right here, and scale it up so that all the tower objects fit entirely inside it. Make sure you scale and move it in object mode. This is crucial. Once all the necessary objects are inside the lattice, go to the outliner, right-click on the collection name, and choose Select Objects. This selects all the objects in that collection, but let's deselect the lattice itself and make sure one of the tower objects is the active selection. Go to the Modifiers tab, and under the Deform category, find the Lattice modifier. Then, inside the Modifier settings, use the eyedropper tool to select the lattice object we just created. Let's copy this modifier to the rest of the selected objects. Click here and choose Copy to Selected. Now, the modifier is applied to all of them, and we can go into Edit mode for the lattice. Select the top vertices, press S to scale, and scale them up. As you can see, scaling the lattice cage deforms the objects that have the modifier attached to them. Let's widen the top and slightly narrow the bottom. You can make this stylistic exaggeration more pronounced or keep it subtle. I'll go for something in the middle. We won't be needing this lattice viewport cage for now, so we can hide it. Just hit the H key on your keyboard and you'll see that the object is hidden. You can also do this in the outliner by clicking this eye icon. Let's keep modeling. Right now, we're going to build this little balcony. To simplify things, let's just duplicate these planks. Press Shift plus D to duplicate, then right-click to cancel the movement. Let's immediately remove the lattice modifier from it. Go into Edit mode for this object, turn on X-ray by pressing Alt plus Z, switch to Face Select, and delete the back planks and this one here. Press X to faces. Select the last one, press G to move, slide it along the X-axis, press R to rotate, and spin it 90 degrees on the Y-axis. In the front view, let's position the plank in this area. Press S, Y to make it wider. Let's shorten the plank. Switch to Edge Select by pressing 2, grab the back edge, tap the G key twice, and slide it using the Edge Slide tool. Do the exact same thing with the front edge. Move the plank back a little bit. Now I've noticed that the shading on the bevels looks very low poly on this plank and consequently on these ones too. To fix this, let's bump up the angle parameter until the bevels look smooth. We'll do the same thing here, but since we have a modifier stack, we'll need to move the Smooth by Angle modifier above it. To do this, we unpin the modifier, select it, and move it up, then increase the angle value. Let's do the same for these. Perfect. Select the plank, go to the Modifiers panel, and add an Array modifier. Set the count to 4. In Edit mode, we can adjust the width of these planks, and in the Modifier's X offset, we can set the desired gap size. After that, let's apply the Array modifier. Hover over it and hit Ctrl plus A. Now, in Edit mode, we can tweak each of these planks individually. For example, let's make this one shorter. Press G, X, and move the front edge back a bit. Do the same thing for this plank. For convenience, you can switch to the top view. I'll pull this one forward a bit, and we can also select, say, these two edges, press G, Y, and make one plank wider than the other. This is how we introduce variety. To create these supporting beams, we'll use the objects we already have. Go into Edit mode, switch to Face Select by pressing 3, and select one of the planks. Press Shift plus D to duplicate it, then right-click and choose Separate Arrow Selection. This moves it into a separate object. Go into Edit mode for this new piece. Press A to select the whole mesh, R, Y, and rotate it 90 degrees. Then lift it up on the Z axis. Press G, Z. Next, switch to the top view and move it to the edge. Press G, X, and slide it right here. Reduce the width of the plank. Press S, Y, and scale it down. Switch to the side view, go to Vertex Select, turn on X-ray, grab the top vertices, and pull them up along the Z-axis. Press G, Z, and lift them to about this level. In the Solidify modifier, we can adjust the thickness of this beam right about like this so it has a square profile. To mirror it to this side, let's go to the Modifiers tab, Generate, and add a Mirror modifier. It mirrors our object to the opposite side. We'll make the beams underneath these planks using these exact same pieces. Duplicate the object, press Shift+D, go into Edit mode, select the whole mesh by pressing A, G, Z, and move it down, R, Y, rotate it 90 degrees. Position them like this in the side view. In X-ray mode, select the back vertices, G, X, and slide them to the right. Let's see how it looks from the side. We can bring them closer to each other, select the mesh, G, Y, and move them. We'll build these railings out of the beams too. Duplicate them with Shift+D, go into Edit mode, G, Z, and bring them up here. Switch to the top view and center them perfectly relative to these beams. Press S, Y, and scale them down. Then reduce the thickness in the Solidify settings to about this much. To create a crossbar right here in the middle, duplicate the mesh, press Shift+D, move it to the right spot, and rotate it 90 degrees, RZ 90. Now, you might notice that the mesh intersects because we have a mirror modifier active. Let's tweak its settings, go to the properties, and enable clipping. Now, when they try to cross the center, they'll weld together. But since the mirror modifier is near the bottom of the stack, it's being calculated last. Let's drag it to the top before all the other modifiers so it applies first. Now they merge before the thickness is added, so we don't see any shading artifacts. To create the supports underneath the railings, we'll use the exact same method. Go into Edit mode, Face Select, grab the face we need, press Shift+D, and duplicate it. Drop it down on the Z-axis, right-click, choose Separate Arrow Selection, and split it into its own object. Go into Edit mode for this piece, select the whole mesh, and rotate it 90 degrees on the Y-axis. Switch to the side view for convenience and scale it on the Z-axis, SZ, then rotate it 90 degrees on the Z-axis, RZ 90. Position it right under the railing. And now let's reduce the thickness in the Solidify settings. Next, press Shift+D, duplicate it, and move it under the middle railing. Here, let's rotate it 90 degrees on Z again, RZ 90, and join them in the middle. No artifacts here because it uses the exact same mirror modifier we set up earlier. Let's pause on the balcony for now and switch over to creating other details for this tower, like these corbels. To do this, let's add a new object. Shift+A, mesh to cube, move it up on Z, scale it down, position it right around here, and dial in the proportions. Once the proportions look good, apply the scale. Press Ctrl+A, Scale. Now go into Edit mode by pressing Tab, switch to Edge Select by pressing 2, select this edge, and hit Ctrl+B. Next, go to the modifiers and add an array modifier. Set the X offset to 0 and increase the Y offset. Set the count to 4 and center them. Perfectly right here. We can increase the bevel offset. Let's transfer the bevel settings from the beams. Select the object you want to copy the modifier to, then select the object that already has the modifier. Go to the bevel settings, click Copy to Selected, and it applies to our object. Let's add Shade Auto. Smooth. Perfect. To copy this object to the other sides, as you've probably guessed, we'll use a mirror modifier. Go to Modifiers, Generate, and find the Mirror modifier. Apply it, and it mirrors based on the object's origin. So we need to right-click, choose Set Origin to 3D Cursor, and the origin jumps right here. Now the mirroring works correctly. Duplicate the object, press Shift plus D, R for rotation, Z, and type 90 degrees. Done. The next object we'll create is the roof. It consists of a pyramidal object that acts as the base, these tiny tiles, a spire with a flag, and a small overhang above the balcony. Let's model it. Add a cube, Shift plus A, mesh to cube, add it in, and move it right up here. Let's immediately jump into Edit mode. Here, press S to scale, Shift plus Z to lock the Z-axis and match the shape. Switch to the Side View, Face Select mode, turn on X-ray, select the bottom face, G, Z, and move it right about here, where the main body of the tower ends. Let's add a loop cut. Press Ctrl plus R, left-click, and slide it down towards the bottom section. Then press S to scale and define the thickness of the roof eaves. Switch to Vertex. Select by pressing 1 and select the bottom part of the roof. Press S again to scale, Shift plus Z, and flare it out. This creates our roof overhang. Select the top section, press S and scale it down, then move it up on the Z-axis. Press G, Z, and pull the roof up. Let's see how it looks from the side. I think the roof in the reference takes up about half the tower's height. So for this face, let's type 3.8 meters on the Z-axis. We can shrink it to about this much. Just make sure you don't collapse all the vertices into a single point. After that, press Ctrl plus R and create a cut right here in the middle, then drop it down a little bit. Now we're going to create that flare on the roof. Press S to scale and bring it inward. Also, I noticed that the slope on the reference looks a bit steeper than ours, so I'll go into Edge Select mode, double-click this edge to select the entire loop, press G, Z, and move it up. Right about like that. Now, double-click this edge loop again, press Ctrl plus B, and use the mouse wheel to set the number of segments. If you aren't happy with the curvature, you can right-click to cancel the tool and tweak the shape at this stage. For example, lifting this loop higher and pressing Ctrl plus B again. Once you're happy with the shape, apply the bevel. Now, in Edge Select mode, let's select all the outer edges of the roof. I'll do this by double-clicking the loops. Now, press Ctrl plus B and create a bevel. Lower the segment count to 2, and make sure to turn on the Clamp Overlap feature. Press C on your keyboard to lock it. Let's zoom in closer. The main thing is to make sure the vertices don't overlap. Let's check the reference. Here, you can notice there's an illusion of tiling along the roof hips, and the edges protrude compared to the main surface. In Edge Select mode, double-click to grab these middle edges on each side. And once again, we'll apply a bevel. Press Ctrl plus B, and this time, set it to just one segment. We pull the bevel almost right up against these existing edges. Next, in Face Select mode, pressing 3 on the keyboard, we'll deselect the faces that sit on this slope. Hold Ctrl, drag over them, and deselect. To shift these selected faces, we need to change our transform orientation from global to normal. Let me show you the difference. In global coordinates, if we try to move them with G, Z, we push these selected areas straight up along the world Z-axis, and we get this abrupt shape distortion at the edge. Looking at the reference, that's not there. So let's undo that and change the transform orientation to normal. We press G, Z again, and now the movement happens along the normal direction of each selected area. Let's push it out about this much. Don't worry about the top part, we're going to cover it up with a spire later anyway. Switch to Object mode, right-click, and apply Shade Smooth. Go back into Edit mode, Edge Select mode by pressing 2, and double-click to select this edge loop and this edge loop. Right-click arrow mark sharp. We also need to mark this edge loop as sharp along with all the others. To do that, double-click to select one of them, deselect the bottom edge, then go to Select Similar Face Angles. This selects all edges that have a similar angle relative to their neighboring faces. You can adjust the threshold value in the operator panel if some edges didn't get picked up. But all of mine are selected, so let's right-click and choose Mark Sharp. It also wouldn't hurt to add sharp edges to the top section. Select it, right-click, Mark Sharp. In object mode, let's look at our model from the side. Now let's create these tiles. Go into Edit mode, double-click this edge loop, go to Select, choose Select Similar Arrow Face Angles again, and increase the threshold value until all the edge loops we need are selected. Double-check that they are, then press Ctrl+B and split them with one segment. Pull them apart slightly and apply. Now, let's select the edges on one of the sides. Hold Shift to select them. To grab all the matching ones, go to Select Arrow, select Similar, and choose Length. Lower the threshold value in the settings and check if all the edges we want are highlighted. If not, hold Shift to add them manually. Once that's done, let's push them out a bit. Press G, Z, and since our transform orientation is set to normal, the movement happens along the individual direction of each selected area. Left-click to apply, and let's review the result. Since we haven't marked these new edges as sharp yet, we get these muddy, smooth gradients. Let's jump back into Edit mode and select all the edges we just created by double-clicking them while holding Shift. We only want to keep the selection on these specific areas, so let's switch to the side view, turn on X-ray with Alt+Z, and hold Ctrl to deselect these horizontal edges. Do the exact same thing on the other side. After that, right-click and choose Mark Sharp. Just like that, the silhouette of these tiles becomes much crisper, though some shading artifacts popped up. You can see them right here, these stray lines. Let's go into Edit mode. Select these artifacts in X-ray mode and do the same on the other side while holding Shift. Then press X and dissolve them. Choose Dissolve Edges. And there we go, the shading is fixed. Let's model this awning over the balcony. Let's add a new object, Shift+A, Mesh to Cube. Move it up on the Z-axis, pull it out on X, and position it right here. Scale it down and dial in the proportions. After that, let's apply the scale. Press Ctrl+A, Scale. Go into Edit mode by pressing Tab, and let's switch from normal back to global transform coordinates. In Face Select mode, pressing 3, select the top face, press S to scale, and scale it along the Y-axis. Switch to the front view. Turn on X-ray, select these side faces, press X, and delete them. After that, let's add a Solidify modifier to give it some thickness. Go to the Modifiers panel and add Solidify. Bump up the thickness value, and make sure to check the Even Thickness option. Go into Edit mode and refine the proportions one more time. For better visibility, let's turn on X-ray mode. Press Alt+Z, select the top face, and scale it on the Y-axis. Press S, Y, and bring it in. Let's see how it looks. I think this should be enough. Go back to X-ray mode, Edit mode, Vertex select one on the keyboard. And let's add a loop cut right here. Press Ctrl+R and add an identical one on the other side. Switch to the front view, select both of them, and let's try to scale them on the Y-axis to bring them a bit closer to the center. Press S, Y, And nothing happens because our transform pivot is still set to individual origins. We need to change it to bounding box center. Press S, Y, and scale them in. After that, we can hit Ctrl+B to bevel them. I think this many segments will do nicely. We've created a subtle curve. To make it match the reference even better, let's go into Edit mode, tap A to select the whole mesh, and flatten the roof out a bit. Press S, Y, and stretch it on the Y-axis. Move it up slightly on Z and scale it. Let's also thin out the roof thickness. Go to Solidify, and I'll set it to -0.15 meters. After that, switch to Object mode, hover over the modifier, hit Ctrl+A, and apply it. Let's also apply Shade Auto Smooth. And now we'll model this ridge cap. Go into Edit mode, Face Select mode by pressing 3, select the top face, then switch to the front view for convenience, and press E to extrude along the Z-axis. Pull it up to about here. After that, press Ctrl+R and add a single loop cut right down the middle. Now let's scale it on the Y-axis. Press S, Y, and flare it out. Also, in Face Select mode, turn on X-ray and grab the top face. We can scale it down. Press S, Y, and shrink it. Let's pull it up just a bit higher. Then switch back to Edge Select and double-click to select this edge loop. Press Ctrl+B and bevel it. Now we have this ridge cap. If you like the shape, awesome. If not, go back into Edit mode and tweak it. For example, moving this face down to get a more rounded profile. You might also notice some sharp edge shading here. Let's just increase the Auto Smooth Angle parameter. There we go, that looks much better. Let's create that tile effect. Go into Edit mode and add a loop cut here. Press Ctrl+R and another one over here. Select both, press Ctrl+B and split them with one segment. Then apply. Now select this edge and this edge, then press G, Z, and move them up. Then press G, Y, and slide them along the Y-axis. Let's look at it from a slightly different angle. Let's also grab these two edges and move them in a similar way. G, Z, then G, Y. Dial in the shape you want. We can select these two edges again, move them along the Y-axis, and drop them down a bit. Once you're happy with the look, we can mirror it to the opposite side. Let's add a cut right down the middle, switch to the front view for convenience, turn on Vertex Select, turn on X-ray, and simply box select the entire right side. Press X to vertices, delete them, and add a mirror modifier. Mirror it along the Y-axis, and we get our finished roof. We can add more detail to the ridge cap. Go into Edit mode, and let's add a few loop cuts. Press Ctrl+R, set it to 3, and split them with one segment. Press Ctrl+B, split them. Switch to the Side View, Vertex Select, X-ray mode, and hold Ctrl to deselect this bottom area. Let's also deselect these vertices and these ones over here. In Edge Select mode, add these edges to the selection, and let's move these selected areas along the Z-axis, press G, Z, and lift them. Let's also turn on clipping so that when we move them on the Y-axis, the object doesn't split apart down the middle. Let's deselect this part, hold Ctrl, and remove it from the selection. After that, press G, X, and shift these three selected areas forward a bit along the X-axis. This gives us a nice shape. It's already looking pretty good. We can apply the Smooth by Angle modifier to get those sharp edges back. Then jump into Edit mode and manually select any missing ones. Once selected, right-click and mark them as sharp. Mark sharp. Let's make sure these support beams reach all the way up to the roof. Let's go into Edit mode and push this edge higher. Press G, Z, and drive it up into the roof structure. Now let's build these little arches. Switch to the front view. We'll make the arches out of these beams. Press Shift plus D to duplicate, go into Edit mode, select the whole mesh by pressing A and rotate it on the Z axis. Press R, Z, and type 90 degrees. Position it right here where the arch begins. Switch to the side view and adjust its position along the X-axis. Press G, X, place it right around here, and scale it down on the X-axis to make it thinner. Switch back to the front view, and let's immediately drop the solidify thickness. Let's make them much thinner. Next, turn on Vertex Select by pressing 1 on the keyboard. Turn on X-ray, grab this vertex, and pull it down, right here. Right now, you can see the beams are intersecting. So let's head over to the mirror modifier settings and enable clipping. We'll also drag the mirror modifier to the very top of the stack, so it evaluates first. Now, merge these vertices together, and you'll see they snap. Right now, it's noticeable that the solidify modifier is acting up without even thickness enabled. Let's turn it on to keep the profile uniform. Now we can grab the bottom vertex and bury it inside this beam, right about here. Press Ctrl plus R and add a loop cut. A new edge appears. Let's slide it right here to define the slope of this arch. Select the top vertex again, push it a bit higher, select this new edge, and split it into the desired number of segments using Ctrl plus B. And there we go, we have a nice pointed arch. Let's see how it looks from a distance. It's looking great. As for us, I'll see you all in the next lesson. See you soon.